Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan, out the Motor City Madmouth. Good crew tonight. Very good crew. We got to the right, Candy Ebling. Welcome back to the big show.
Thanks, Scott. Glad to be here and glad to be on the panelists that we have collected tonight.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely bring her up last because I got news for you. She's one of my favorite people too. But the guy that started the Sports Exchange with many years ago back in the 80s, George Eichhorn, we get to keep this puppy going, don't we?
Oh, yes, we do. Good to be on with not one but two lady sportscasters tonight.
These two are as good as it gets. JB Ellis couldn't make it, no problem. My pretty pinch hitter, Jennifer Matthews Lewis, known for 3 Chicks in a Pod and Chicks and Salsa, is in the house. Welcome back, Jennifer.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back. I appreciate the invite.
Oh, we appreciate you just being on. All right.
With that said, this JB has a cute face, but I do have a prettier one.
Do you think I'm going to argue? If you think I'm going to argue about that, then politics are honest. So for all y'all picking up on that, there's no question Jennifer has a pretty face. Of course, Candy and I met her in person just a few months back. So
yeah.
Pretty good hanging out in Charlotte. All right. Well,
I need you to come back so we can go back to cast iron waffles. I use that for special occasions.
I'm sorry, repeat that again.
I need you to come back so we can go back to cast iron waffles. I will only go there for special occasions.
That was a good place. That really was.
George, you can come too. Thank you.
There you go.
You should get them as a sponsor of your show. That place was really good. I have to admit.
I had a dream about them last night, y'all.
Wow. You ever dream about a waffle place? Man, I can only imagine what you're dreaming about.
I was really hungry.
Yeah. Okay, well, that was a pretty good place. I make no bones about it. All right, well, let's get to business here. We're going to talk about a guy who's having a little bit harder time dreaming these days, and I don't mean that in a very sarcastic way. I mean it in a very sincere way. Brett Favre, age 54, diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. You know what, Jennifer? I'll let you start off with this. What do you think of what just occurred to Brett Favre?
As a human, I feel really bad for him. I really do. Because that's not a fun disease. We've seen it, just take the life out of very active people such as himself. I do hope he doesn't try to use it as an excuse for upcoming court cases, because that wouldn't be cool to take away from other people, because that wasn't affecting him when he did what he did. However, I do hope that he can get a speedy recovery. I know he really backed a company with concussions. I forgot what they were called, but I do hope, it sucks. Like, having any disease is no fun. Parkinson's, especially for somebody who's been as active as he has been his entire life, that's just no good at all. And my heart hurts for him.
Okay. George?
Yeah, I was quite surprised by the news. It's not the best thing you want to hear from anybody, let alone a famous person. You think about the career of Michaeljfox and how it's affected him, and just curtailed his acting career. We got a guy in Detroit called Kirkgibson, obviously the former Michigan State football star and Detroit Tigers and Los Angeles Dodger. And Gibby's got it as well, and he has been doing a pretty good job still in the broadcast booth. He's not on every day, nor can he do it every day, no. So they're very selective with Bally Sports doing the Tiger games. I wish Brett and his family and his friends the best. It is a debilitating illness. And obviously more and more people, unfortunately, seem to be getting it in America and worldwide. But that being said, it is very unfortunate. And obviously, he has a lot of other things going on in his life, as Jennifer alluded to. So I hope he doesn't try to use that, too, in a negative sense that way either. But I do wish him well. I will continue to think and pray and give him thoughts and hope that somehow he can come through and beat this.
Okay, Candy, obviously played in Green Bay. a quarterback you're all too familiar with. Of course, in Detroit, we are too. We're on the wrong end of his losses, but I'll get on that. So, what are your thoughts about Brett coming down with this disease?
We've always nicknamed him the gunslinger, and at this point, he's not going to be slinging any guns. Let's face it. What causes Parkinson's disease is unknown, and it's unclear if his disease is connected to his football career of head injuries. With that being said, though, back in 2022, he said that he estimates he experienced thousands of concussions in his 2 decades in the NFL and before. Obviously, we all know one of the most famous people with Parkinson's was Muhammad Ali.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And look what happened to him. Now, you think of his career, he was hit in the head. I mean, an abundance of times. So we know it has to do with head injuries and stuff like that. What also scares me now is we've all seen how many times Tua has gone down. And he hasn't even been hit real hard this last time, but yet he's suffering all these concussions. I don't understand why more of the guys don't wear the Guardian more protective helmet on their helmets to protect themselves, because we all know that they hit hard with force on an NFL. I mean, if you're tackling a guy, you're coming at him with whatever you've got to tackle him to stop him. And the collisions can be magnitude. I mean, real hard. And I'm scared for what the future holds. I also love the sport. So whatever we can do to protect those that are playing that sport, we need to try and do. Because let's face it, more and more parents aren't letting their kids play tackle football. You're seeing, you're not necessarily seeing an increase or a lot of young kids playing the sport because of these collisions. I feel bad for Brett. I feel bad for him, but I really feel bad for his family, because it's the family that has to support him, that will have to do things for him. And to see a family member go through that and go through those changes, your heart just aches for them. And I don't care. I understand he has legal issues. There are a lot of people that are not happy with things he did. But as a human being, that's a terrible disease. Just a terrible disease.
Okay. Well, first of all, Candy, you mentioned Muhammad Ali. I had the good fortune of spending about a week with him back in the 80s, okay, early in my journalism career. Unbelievable person. I actually have a photo in my book of Muhammad Ali, okay, and I have a picture all over the place of Muhammad Ali. And if a picture is worth 1,000 words, mark my word, folks, okay, the one I have with Muhammad Ali is epic. When you spend, there you go, Jennifer. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Got it up there. When you spend a week with him, then you understand the magnitude of his head injury. So, as for Brett Favre, I'll admit he's my all-time favorite quarterback. Anybody that can play that many games in a row, like 260 some games in a row, playing consecutive in that sport, football, really? I mean, that's unbelievable. That's an unheard of record. You talk about records that'll never be broken, that won't. So, I'm not going to talk about his legal issues. That's something he'll work out on his own. I'm concerned about Brett, the man. And I have to say, I've even experienced a few concussions in my day as well, especially more recently. It's not fun, because you know what? I'm starting to deal with some memory loss of my own, and it's a lot more than I let on to people. And Candy has to deal with it on a daily basis. And I am dealing with memory loss. I had a situation last week up in Tampa where I actually not only left my clipboard at a friend's table doing a show. We'll probably get it back, but it's just some of the things where you're wired up high, you forget things, and losing your memory is not fun. I'm currently under the care of a top neurologist in South Florida, and I just had 2 MRIs recently. It isn't fun. So, Brett, all I can honestly tell you, pal, I hope you get better, and I'm glad that George mentioned Kirk-Gibson and Michaeljfox as well. It's hard to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, since we have a woman based in Charlotte, North Carolina, right? Charlotte, North Carolina, we have a quarterback situation going on there between Andy Dalton versus Bryce Young, 2024. Let me go over some numbers, as we call it, the tale of the tape. Andy Dalton, 70.3% completion percentage, 319 yards, 3 touchdowns, 123.6 passer rating. Bryce Young, 55.4% completion percentage, 245 yards, no touchdowns, 44.1, and he happens to be 2-16 in his first starts, while Andy Dalton is 1-0. All I'm going to say about this whole thing, and then I'm turning it over to everybody else, is Bryce Young should not have been starting in the first place. In my opinion, when you have a team that bad, you go with a veteran, let the kid hold a clipboard, period. Back when George and I were much younger, that's all quarterbacks did. If they were young, you let them sit with a clipboard 1, 2, 3 years. You talk about Brett Favre. How long did Rodgers have to sit? 2 or 3 years. So the beat goes on and on. The better quarterbacks sit. And Bryce Young was rushed in too quickly. And I think Dave Canales made a wise and bold move to put Andy Dalton in. Not only does it give him the best chance to win, but it gives this kid a chance to just sit back, put your foot on the brakes, learn, and sponge. All right, Jen, take it away.
And it also gives Dave Canales the respect of the locker room, because I have nothing to back up this next statement. It is my belief, based on people I've spoken to, there were 2 people within Carolina Panthers organization that wanted to drop Bryce Young. And it had nothing to do with his size. But Carolina Panthers football is not built around Bryce Young type of quarterback, right? We are more of a Cam Newton, a Lamar Jackson, Anthony Richardson, even Big Ben style quarterback. Dad and my father and I, y'all know I go to most of the Panthers home games. Dad and I said all season last year that Andy needed to be starting, Bryce needed to be watching. Because Alabama is great. Saban was great at an offensive line and the offense, right? Like, no better college coach genius than Nick Saban. He was not a quarterback coach. Look at Tua. Look at Jalen Hurts. Look at Mac Jones. Like, it took Jalen Hurts, 6-7 years away from Alabama to get into like the playoffs and into the Super Bowls. And there's no shame in that. It doesn't happen overnight, obviously, but he still can't close 4 full quarters. Like, I mean, honestly, like the Eagles on Sunday, thank you for beating the Saints, but they can't. I'm just not a Nick Saban quarterback girl. Okay. Andy Dalton and Bryce Young. Andy Dalton said this so well and very succinctly. I've been on both sides of this position before. He said, I know how Bryce feels right now. It is my job to coach him up and to help him be the caliber quarterback he's supposed to be. Right. Because, I mean, Bryce Young has it. That being said, with the shenanigans that were going on at every level of the Carolina Panthers organization last year, so much so that a 30-minute article to read was written called Hunger Games, Carolina Panthers Styles by the Athletic. And it took several writers to write this article. So I understand why Bryce doesn't trust anyone in the Carolina Panthers organization. I get that. I understand why the offense this season is not trusting Bryce, because he apparently had an amazing training camp and preseason. Obviously they only played like 1 or 2 snaps in preseason. And Canales has said that's on him. And it was. That was a bad decision on Dave Canales. But honestly, like, he needed to sit behind Andy. And I'm happy for Andy. And because he needed that game. He needed to rejuvenate his career and come back in and win solidly. And honestly, and rightfully so, what happens when you come in too cocky? You lose. And that's what the Raiders did. The Raiders came in way too cocky. And the refs kind of helped out a little bit, tried to a little bit, but it wasn't enough. And that's what happens when you're a good football team. You overcome bad officiating and you work together. So, yeah, Dave Canales, hats off to him. He did a great thing. I actually think, because I don't know if y'all know this, but after the Saints loss, he and David Tepper sat down. I think that was a call by Coach Canales. And I think it was his decision to set Bryce down, because I think David Tepper really wanted to keep Bryce as the starter. That's just my humble opinion, because he can't be wrong on anything. But he was. And, you know, it's okay not to be perfect when you're coming out. Not Cam Newton, generational athlete. Generational. Not every player is going to come out a rookie and be a game changer like Cam. It's not going to happen. Patrick, generational player. Lamar, again, generational player. You're not going to get those every time. So, yeah, like, it was a great call. I'm happy with it. I think Bryce will be happy with it at the end of the day. I just want Bryce to remember that whatever setback is actually set up for something so much better than he can imagine.
Well, first of all, I'm not crazy that David Tepper let Frank Reich go in the manner that he let him go. Frank Reich was brought in there with the intent to develop him, and all he had was a cup of coffee there as a coach. So I think that was bad. You had Jim Caldwell. There was an offensive mind. They had some good offensive mind, but we'll leave that for another day. I know you have so much time tonight, so
that's okay. You can chat more about that too if you want.
That's okay. Just want to make sure I'm very considerate of what your time frame is. That's all.
Frank Reich, I personally think, again, nothing to back it up, we all wanted Steve Wilkes to be our head coach. Panthers, players, everybody was making a full court press against David Tepper. In David Tepper's defense, right after he fired Matt Toole, he said, I want an offensive-minded coach. Head coach. I think he picked Reich because Reich was our first starting quarterback back in 1995.
Right.
And he started for 2 games. And I think he thought that would bring the same sentimental value that Coach Wilkes does.
Right.
But he doesn't. When Frank Reich was starting for us, Steve Wilkes was outside the stadium selling hot dogs saying, I'm going to be the head coach of the Carolina Panthers one day.
Oh. Go figure. And that was a mistake by not retaining him, but we'll get into that another day.
Yeah.
I've always believed in that. Why didn't you keep Wilkes? He had the program on the right track. But David Tepper is his team. He'll do whatever he wants. And when you lose a lot, well, then I think that falls on the onus of the owner. Frank Reich, don't worry. Even though he had an abrupt departure, he's getting paid pretty good money to just sit back and relax anyway. So, all right, George Eichhorn.
Well, I agree with much of what Jennifer said. And I also saw Kurt Warner talk about this too. And he said that the kid needs to learn and grow. I have a lot of admiration. As you know, Scott, I covered Kurt Warner's Super Bowl down in Atlanta. And that remarkable game was and a very Hall of Fame career. I respect Kurt Warner. And I like those 2 words, learn and grow. So what happens exactly is what you don't want to see. And by that, I mean, you throw the guy in before he's ready. Like you said, Scott, we saw many a quarterback with that clipboard and learning under somebody in front of them. Aaron Rodgers, good example. Guys under Matthew Stafford here in Detroit and, the Blau and those guys, some of them were just journeymen kind of backup quarterbacks. But the situation that you had here, you had a veteran and you have a veteran, not had, but have, in Andy Dalton. And, the fact of the matter is Bryce Young hasn't proven he's ready. You look at last year, 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Look at this year. No touchdowns, 3 interceptions in the 2 games that he was in. But no, I don't think he's a first round bust. I don't think he's lost his opportunity forever. No, this is a long career we're talking about. And sometimes you just take a step back. You maybe get thrust into a situation before you were ready, but taking that step back and learning and growing, as Kurt Warner said, that's what Bryce Young has to do. There's a lot of football left. I know that's a cliche, but there's a lot. His career is hopefully going to be a lengthy one. And I would never give up on him at this age, never. And we saw it again in the 24 draft here in Detroit, where all these quarterbacks are being taken and thrust into these situations, some of them when they're not ready yet. JJ, of course, from Michigan, he's not even going to get the chance because he's out all year in Minnesota. But there's a lot of quarterbacks that are taken early. In the last several drafts, we see that. It's very commonplace. But the coaches and the teams and the owners got to realize that these guys still need learning. They still need to learn to play and win as a professional. And the NFL is not easy, as we all know. So my theory is, yes, I agreed with this decision, and I think it'll help this kid out in years ahead.
All right, Candy.
So we talk about Bryce being from Alabama, and we talk about, is Nick Saban a really good developer of quarterbacks? Honestly, I would say most, and not all, but most head coaches for college are not the developers of the team. It's their quarterbacks coach. It's the offensive coordinators. Those are the ones that really work head to head with those individuals to develop them. Now, was he there for very long? He was behind Mac Jones for a while, and then he got into playing. But we all have to understand that there is a very big difference between college football and the NFL. The guys are bigger, the guys are faster, they're stronger, they're normally more developed. It's a different game in the NFL. And we've all said that consistency in coaching makes a difference. And here you go from Alabama to the Carolina Panthers, and you're switching coaching. You're trying to get into the NFL. As a rookie, it is hard to figure out what the difference is, the speed of the game, the different sets, the different minds of the different teams that you're going against. You're going up against tough defenses, whereas maybe it's not as it's maybe not as a defensive game in college as it is more as strategy defense in the NFL. And so, yes, Green Bay has had success with sitting their rookies for a year or 2 years before they go in. So should Bryce have started? No. And I'm of the mindset, and it rarely is very successful. We've seen it only a couple of times. They need to sit. They need that time to adjust to the NFL and to the NFL players, the schemes, the sets, some of these coaches have very complicated offenses, and to run complicated offenses, it takes time. But so I'm glad that they sat him. Good for Andy Dalton. Here's your time to shine. Here's your time to, resurrect your career and see what you can do, and to show other teams what you can do, because let's face it, Bryce, they're not trading away Bryce. They're not giving up on him. they still think he's the future in their quarterback room. So where would that leave Andy in a year or two? Does he still want to play? Will he be a good backup? Because let's face it, injuries like Tua's happens. You need good backup quarterbacks to take over as well. So this is your time, Andy, to shine. Even if you can't be a starter in the league going forward, that you are a very good backup, because we do need those in the league as well.
Okay, Jennifer, you had something you wanted to add on Dave Canales. Go ahead and add that. I thought it was a pretty interesting point that you brought up. So I want you to bring it out here for everybody can see. And then we'll get to our last topic of the night. Okay.
Okay.
Ahead,
So
Jen.
what I was going to say is that Coach Canales kind of shot to fame because of of all the work he did with Geno Smith in Seattle, of the work he did with Baker Mayfield, of the work he did with a couple of USC Trojan quarterbacks. He's known to bring back and rejuvenate careers for the quarterbacks. We saw that with Baker last year. We saw that on Sunday with Andy Dalton. When is the last time? Andy Dalton is the first one to have 300 yards passing for a quarterback this season in a single game. Who would have thunk?
Yeah.
This is going to help Bryce, and it's going to help Andy also. And Andy is signed through. He has this year and next year on his contract still. So my hope is Bryce is behind him for this year and next year. Not to penalize him, but to help him.
Well, I think that'll happen. A couple of things I want to mention before we get to the last topic of the night. Justin Fields is probably the happiest man on the planet because he's with Pittsburgh. Okay, number two, I think Caleb Williams, this is my personal opinion, is going to be a bust, period. If you want to look at Jade McDaniels, well, tell you what, I'm going to tell you right now, I think it wouldn't matter who's playing quarterback for Chicago. You could still throw the Statue of Liberty pass. It wouldn't matter. No, I don't think any Bears quarterbacks ever thrown for over 3,000 or 4,000 yards. Leave it at that. Caleb Williams a bust. Justin Fields, to me, is happy in Pittsburgh, and I'm happy because we still have time to talk about Sam Darnold, which was a good segue from what George Eichhorn said about J.J. McCarthy. Former Panthers quarterback Sam Darnold's fresh start in Minnesota has led to a 3-0, and with one important game at Green Bay against the Packers. All right, Jennifer, once upon a time there was a Sam Darnold sighting in Carolina, but he's up in Minnesota playing in that $1 zillion dome. What are your thoughts about the fact that Kevin O'Connell got him straightened out, and Sammy is glad that he's up in the Great White North?
So unfortunately for Sam, he was here under Matt Toole. However, Matt Toole did see a really good, I'm sorry, it's what I call him. It is what he did see the talent there. I always felt bad for Sam and Baker. Truly it did, and for Teddy Bridgewater. Especially from a man cam. But we're in our 10th starting quarterbacks in 6 years, guys. So let's face facts. It ain't always a quarterback. That being said, Sam had a great year with the 49ers last year too, because remember he took over for Brock for about at least 4 games last year, 4 or 5 games, and he helped get them, into the playoffs solidly. I'm excited for Sam. He deserves this rejuvenation. I think it's amazing that he's doing so well with the Minnesota Vikings 3-0. What a way to really show his talents and skills, and to stop the one thing he probably hates hearing the most, but he stopped seeing ghosts. So that's a good thing.
Well,
he figured out how to put it behind him.
The only thing I'll say about Sam Darnold is just like J.J. McCarthy. Now you can sit J.J. McCarthy for a couple of years and let Sam play for a while. So you have the same exact situation as you have with Dalton and Bryce Young. All right. So with that said, let's flip over to George Eichhorn, Candy Ebling, and I'll wrap it up. Although I do want to mention one thing before we go off air. Did you see this coming? James Madison 70, North Carolina 50. Holy moly! But don't sell James Madison short, because they're 3-0 in the Sun Belt, and they played great football in the FCS before they ended up making the jump. So I didn't see it coming. mackbrown must have been doing cartwheels. I'm sure he's calmed down a little bit, but just thought I'd mention it since I have a North Carolina girl on here. James Madison 70, North Carolina 50, and no, James Madison didn't come out of his grade to throw touchdown passes. All right.
So, after that game, Scott, mackbrown asked his players if they needed him to retire.
Okay.
I don't think that was appropriate. I love McBrown, but it was that whole, I told Katie last night, it was that whole guilt trip. Like your parents used to pull on you when you were a kid. Well, am I just not doing it good enough? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I was like, come on, Mac, you're better than that. So, I don't know.
Stuff happens. All right, George Eichhorn, continue on forward with Sam Darnold. We'll turn over to
Sam
Candy.
Darnold. Yes, yes. Well, 3 games and 3 victories. If you would have told me that they would be winning with Sam Darnold and they'd beat Houston and they'd beat San Francisco, and it seems like everybody beats the Giants these days, I would have told you you're crazy. But here we go. 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions in those 3 games total. And, a rating of 119 against Houston, who many people expect to be going deep in the playoffs, of course, and San Francisco, also expected by many to be deep. So what you've done is established a winning attitude real fast in Minnesota. J.J. McCarthy, down for the count, injured. We heard all about that. Sam Darnold bounced around, never really had a great career yet, but boy, oh boy, I give him credit. He's doing fine and doing well. So I think there's a situation there. Yes, a little bit similarity, although, with Bryce Young, he's not injured per se like McCarthy was. But here's another example of a veteran stepping up and going and winning. So I give him a lot of credit. I mean, how long that can continue, I don't know. But getting out of the gate 3-0 in a very tough Central Division, as you guys know, with Detroit and with Green Bay and Chicago also, you're going to have it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun in the NFC Central this year if Darnold keeps this up. But hats off to him. He's doing great so far, and the Vikings are also. But we'll see what happens. A little team that I believe Candy's familiar with. They have to play. Minnesota's got to play at Green Bay, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, he's he's turned things around in his career. That's good for him.
All right. Well, you know what, you've been hinting toward it, so we'll turn it over to Candy Eveling.
Oh, Sam Darnold. Being paid $10 million a year for Minnesota, and yet he is 3-0. Who would have guessed? Let's face it, at the beginning of the season, I would say as many different podcasts or different people I heard when they were picking who was going to take what divisions and stuff like that, they picked Minnesota to be last in the NFC division. Them and Chicago. They said Detroit, Green Bay, Minnesota would probably be second last or last, depending on where you kind of felt with the whole Caleb Williams and stuff like that. But Minnesota's tough. Minnesota's got weapons. Minnesota has a defense. And Green Bay's not going to take them lightly. We do not know yet who is going to be in at quarterback. I'm guessing it'll be Malik Willis. Only because with the injury that Jordan Love had, I really think you need to rest it, because if you don't, you can re-aggravate it and he would be out for even longer in this. But I mean, kudos to Sam Darnold, because let's face it, he's making less than a lot of other quarterbacks in the league right now, because look at how many quarterbacks were dealt huge contracts over this offseason. I mean, look at like Tua, and he's out now injured, and look at what he's getting. Kudos to him. Am I happy to see the Minnesota Vikings doing as well? Of course not, because they're in the same division as the team. I'm just being honest, but kudos to him. He's doing well, and he's resurrecting his career. So,
well, the only thing I'll say about Sam Darnold, Kevin O'Connell is a great offensive mind. Brian Flores is an outstanding defensive coordinator. So when you can stop the other team and you have coach that believes in you. That's a recipe for success. Shame on the Carolina Panthers for giving up on him premature. I'm glad he had a chance to go to San Francisco, but Minnesota may have found themselves a guy that can certainly help the development of J.J. McCarthy. I know we're running out of time here, so with that said, Jennifer Matthews-Lewis, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
Y'all can check us out, especially me and Candy, on Tuesday nights. Usually Carrie and Megan are with us too, at 7:30 p.m. and East Coast, and on Facebook or YouTube, and on Reddit. You can catch me at Jenna Trail as well as on Twitter.
I will tear a Pooh Bear into a stain on the floor.
Yep. So we appreciate you pinch hitting for JB Ellis, Jen. All right, George Icorn, let everybody know how they can go ahead and get a hold of you. In fact, I'd love to have Jen on at least once a month if we could do it, but maybe we will with Inside the Pixie and give her a segment. She's so knowledgeable and adorable. We got to bring her on, and I'm all about talent and good talent. Okay, George Icorn, let everybody know they get hold of you.
Yeah, you can follow me under the Motor City Tribune, which is part of the family of the South Florida Tribune. And I write for the Detroit Monitor locally. I also join Scott on 2 shows, usually on Monday and 2 on Wednesday. Look forward to these great shows on the network. You can reach me at Twitter. Follow me on X at SandGSports99. Also, contact me on Yahoo, gicorn@yahoo.com, on LinkedIn, and you can get a hold of me too on Instagram. I have an account there as well. And looking forward to my book is kind of resurging now after many years, thanks to Scott and Candy and these great shows. And Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air is the name of the book. And there's a link in my column right at the end. And Candy put a picture of the cover, which features Bud Lynch and Bob Reynolds, 2 sportscasters in the book. So, yeah, it's available as well. And I enjoy that book as much as I enjoy Scott's book, too. I was able to write the foreword for him. So great to be on with you. Thanks, Jennifer, for being on with us.
All right, Candy, take us home.
So, Jen, I think you meant to mention this, and I don't know that I heard it, so I'm going to reiterate. Tuesday night, 7:30. It's Chicks and Salsa. Once in a while, we do 3 chicks in a pod. It just depends on how many of us. Basically, what happened is Jen, Megan, and Carrie had 3 chicks in a podcast, and then they decided to invite me, and I made a 4th. And we were like, are we 3 chicks in a pod and a chick, or what should we do? So we made it to be Chicks and Salsa. And so we have a lot of fun. We love talking sports, girls talking sports, girls talking girl sports, guys sports, all of it. We love it. But yes, 7:30 Tuesday nights, you can find us chicks. And it's almost always Jen and I, at least. And then Carrie and Megan, whenever they can, join us. As far as the show you're listening to right now, The Sports Exchange, always Wednesday nights at 9 o'clock. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. But all of our shows are on our YouTube channel. There's a link. If you see that red subscribe button by George, you got to click it and like us. I don't know why you haven't done it so far. You're missing out. You need to do it right now. Monday nights on Fire Up Florida, we talk hockey. Then we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesday nights is Sports Exchange. And Thursday nights is Fire Up. You got to come see what we're talking about tomorrow night. You never know what it's going to be. The South Florida Tribune published a book, and it was written by none other than Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morgan Roth. And it's called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. The foreword was written by none other than George Icorn. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, for that book, for all of our merchandise store. And Scott writes, George writes, I take pictures. Go check out the website. If you like college sports, it's down here in South Florida, all of the major schools send us content. The Jags, the Dolphins, and the Lions also send us their transcripts that we post up there. You got to go check us out. Check out our YouTube channel if you like the Miami Hurricanes. We have all kinds of interviews for that and stuff like that. Jen, I know you have to go. Thank you so much for filling in for us. We really appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thank you for having me. Sorry, guys.
Oh, that's okay.
You're
Glad to
good.
have you, Jen. We'll definitely be in touch. Thank you very much.
All right, talk to you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So if you listen to podcasts, go find us, iHeartRadio, Google, Apple, Spotify. You got it. Go there and find us. We also ask, if you want to advertise on one of our shows or sponsor a show, call Scott 954-304-4941. If you enjoy our shows, share it with everybody. And of course, the different contributors we have on all of the different shows, go and look at check out their channels. Some of them have their own shows and their channels, and they're giving us their time. So please, reciprocate. But more importantly, we just ask that you enjoy our shows. And if you have any topic ideas or any ideas, or maybe you want to be a guest on the show, if you do, you should be commenting in our chat room. But you can also email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. All of this has been scrolling on the bottom, so you can either read it, watch it, rewind us, listen again, watch it again, and you can get any of that information if you missed it the first time. Scott, I think I covered, Twitter, X, @Tribune South. Now I think I got it all.
Now you've covered it. So this concludes this edition of the Sports Exchange. On behalf of Jennifer Matthews, Lewis, Candy Emily, and George Eichhorn, my name is Scott Morganroth. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we will see you next Wednesday night. Have a great week, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.